Well, what's going on, everybody? I'm Jiffy Nano, and today we're going to go over one of my new builds for Amara that is all about spamming your Phasecast for debuffs and insane damage. This was a build I wanted to do for quite some time now, but I felt like it wasn't as sustainable as I wanted it to because of action skill cooldown time. The Phasecast has about a 15 to 20 second cooldown when we stack our skills and passives on gear, and the topped off skill in the Guardian ranks helps, but the Phasecast kind of demands a more aggressive playstyle, so your shield will more than likely be damaged a majority of the time. But now that we have the new Plus Ultra Shield, this aggressiveness actually helps us with the issue. So here are the skill trees. They're pretty par for the course if I'm being honest. Unfortunately, until we get into these skill trees with DLC 5, the skill spec variety is going to be pretty low for some characters like Amara and Zane. The big skills we're taking here are Avatar for 2 action skill casts, Laid Bare for debuffing enemies, Restless for increased action skill cooldown rate, and Transcendent Wrath because they give you a boost of damage after you use your action skill. For our action skill, we're taking Reverberation. This version of Phasecast does increase damage for every enemy that you hit, but the description is a bit misleading and does not actually increase by 50%, but actually does more damage initially and only increases by 25% for every enemy you hit. This just means it does the most damage of all the Phasecasts on initial contact with enemies. We are also taking Revelation as our action skill augment. This causes your cast to Nova every time it hits an enemy. Revelation gets Mayhem scaling along with the cast itself, so this effectively doubles the damage output of your Phasecast and gives it a little bit of AoE damage. So, the idea behind this is to spam your casts to debuff enemies and boost your damage with the 250% weapon damage after Phasecast anointment. Keeping this anoint up is why we wanted so much action skill cooldown rate. The anoint is only active for 10 seconds, so the closer we can get our cooldown to less than 10 seconds, the better. This is why we're using the golden rule for our class mod. The golden rule fits perfectly with the aggressive playstyle as it gives you increased cooldown rate when you take damage, and it can also drop with 3 extra points in the Laid Bare, boosting our debuff damage. The only issue with this class mod is that you have to take a ton of damage from different sources to get the most cooldown, so the potential for this class mod is extremely high, but the actual cooldown you get is much less. Now comes in the Plus Ultra Shield. This new shield has a 25% chance to absorb ammo and increase your action skill cooldown rate. This synergizes perfectly with the golden rule, both giving cooldown when taking damage. This gives us the best possible scenario for keeping that Phasecast anoint active. So now that we have the Phasecast anoint up as often as possible, we can get weapons with the said anoint. I suggest stuff with high damage per shot, things like the Hellwalker, the Sandhawk, or the Backburner, rockets, snipers, and shotguns, stuff like that. In my opinion, that 10-second window from the anoint works really well with high damage, slower firing weapons, as it really ramps the damage they deal up to 11, and 1 or 2 shots will kill a boss or a badass extremely easily. Your grenade and artifact don't really matter that much. For your grenade, you just want to make sure you have an ASC element on it, and the Pearl of Ineffable Knowledge is still the best. The It's Piss grenade is a super solid choice as well, because it debuffs enemies, making bossing even easier, and if you wanted to, you could even switch to a Muse class mod from DLC 4 for bossing, since it can drop with more than 3 extra points in the Laid Bare. I had a lot of fun playing this build. Being able to spam your Phasecast is extremely satisfying, even though it's not as spammy as like Flax Rack. But you can do some really cool stuff with action skill start anoints on a Nova Shield or something like that. And I'm glad after all this time I was finally able to get a Phasecast build put together that didn't feel like I was constantly pressing my action skill button just for it to beep at me that it's not ready. There are very few times where I felt like my damage output wasn't high enough because my anoint ran out, and while this doesn't have the crowd control and crowd clearing power that Ties That Bind does, you can still get through mobs pretty easily, but this build really sings against single targets with its debuffs and increased damage from the anoint. It could just annihilate bosses and badasses. So if you're on PC, you can grab the save file for this build in my Discord, link in the description. If you're on console, I apologize, but currently there's no way to transfer PC saves to console, so I wish you good luck with farming for the gear. Also, all of my builds are theory crafted and tested over on my live stream, so if you ever want to take part in building some of these builds, consider checking that out over on Twitch. Link is also in the description. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and consider subscribing so you get notified of my future uploads. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.